Welcome back to Two Gals in a Glass Half Full. Today, we're going to talk about flexibility, mobility, and why it's so important. I feel like it's one of those things that we tend to leave out in workouts. We go for a run, but we don't really warm up, we don't cool down, and we definitely don't stretch. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Make sure to hit subscribe below to follow us along. And before we get started, Dr. Jess, what's in your glass?
So this morning I'm working on my cup of coffee, my low acidic bean with a little bit of half and half. It's it takes me a while to finish it because I keep getting distracted, but that's okay. Eventually I'll finish it. So Dr. Bobbie, what's in your glass?
I'm just having some plain water, trying to rehydrate after not feeling so well yesterday. So, getting some fluids back in me.
I like it. All right. And so today, as Dr. Bobby was saying, what we're going to be talking about is the importance of flexibility and mobility and why. Like, what's the why behind it?
Mhm.
Because we're not going to ask people to spend time doing something that doesn't have like a true benefit. So, cost benefit. The cost is going to be time. What's the benefit going to be for that time spent? And so this is one of those where it makes sense. It makes sense to spend the time doing it because it's not a large amount of time. So Dr. Bobby, when we talk about mobility and flexibility, are those the same thing or are they different?
So, how I like to look at it is like mobility is your ability to move through emotion, whereas flexibility is do you have the range, like the adequate range of motion? Are you moving through a full range? Is your arm going all the way up? So I feel like the flexibility is kind of looking at more what we do as a physical therapy, looking at more trying to have full range of motion, and mobility is just moving through it. That's kind of how my take on it, and everyone can have a little bit of different take. So, Dr. Jess, what's your take on the difference between the two?
So when I do mobility, that's going to be typically a combination of different things, right? So in
Mhm.
order for me to move through a range, so let's say I want to rotate my body to the right. So if I want to rotate to the right, a lot of different things need to allow me to do that. I need to have adequate joint mobility. I need to have enough muscle length in order to be able to do that. And I have to have enough ligamentous mobility to allow me to do it as well. So I can't have major things adhered or stuck or scar tissue. Anything might be stopping me from rotating to the right. That's a non-specific measurement that we take in physical therapy, right? So it's not like, oh, you're not rotating to the right. It's definitely the facet. It might not be the spine, right? Like I might come in and check and you've got this big old scar line and it doesn't let you move at all, right? So
Mhm.
so that it's generalized. A lot of things have to work together to allow normalized mobility. So when we do mobility exercises, they're going to be a little bit more non-specific to a certain muscle or a certain joint. They're going to be doing a lot of combinations of. And then flexibility, that's where we're typically looking more at muscle length, right? So we want
Mhm.
the length of that muscle to be able to allow that specific motion. And so if I want to have improved flexibility in my pec major, then I stretch that specific muscle. Same thing with hamstrings, um, pecs, quads, like anything that might be tight and
Mhm.
restricted. And some of it we just want to kind of maintain normal. And how we maintain that is with constant work on it. And that's just the consistency of. So
And the one thing
they're
I
different.
with flexibility that Dr. Jess and I look at, and this is a little bit harder for you to do on your own. There are some stuff you can do, but it also involves, as you were saying, the joints, like the capsules. So the tissues that surround the joints can get tight, and we might have to stretch that capsule. That's something more a physical therapist might help you do. There are some techniques, again, as I said, that you can do yourself, but a lot that's also something Dr. Jess and I will look for when we're working with patients.
Absolutely. If there's like a significant restriction for sure.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
So how would you add this into your life, right? So it's not like, so we're not saying like you have to come into a physical therapy office in order to be able to
Mm-mm.
like know how to do mobility and flexibility exercises. So if you're not in pain and you don't have anything that's specifically like, when I do this, I get sharp pain. When I do this, I get something that throbs or shoots. That's a never. Like you never reproduce those kinds of symptoms if you're trying to do something beneficial on your own. But if you're going through mobility exercises or flexibility stretching exercises, you should feel a tug, a pull, a muscle is stretching. It could be feel like a little bit tight, and then as you do more reps, it feels like, oh, that moves better. That's
Mhm.
all normal things to feel when you're doing these types of movements or these types of exercises. So, Dr. Bobbie, when we think of when just like the practicality of like when would you do these types of movements in your day?
So for me, honestly, I feel like one of the best is when you first get up in the morning. Now, it doesn't have to be a huge routine, but how many of us just lay in bed and stretch a little bit, and how good does it feel? So in the morning, doing 2, 3 minutes of just a quick opening the front of your chest, kind of stretching those legs out after laying around all night and sleeping. Hopefully, you had a good night's sleep. Um, I feel like one of the best times is just to get a few minutes in the morning. And then my other favorite time is to do like, so if I'm looking at actual flexibility and making change, I like to do it like after a workout, or if I didn't work out that day, that is my workout. Um, I like to kind of, it's one thing that you can do every single day. It's one thing you should do almost every single day is kind of flexibility or mobility. I feel like flexibility, you're trying to improve range of motion. Mobility, you're kind of maintaining, keeping what you have.
Mhm.
Is kind of how I look at it as well. So it's something you can do every day and you should do. But man, that morning, first thing in the morning, it feels so good. How about you, Dr. Jess?
Yeah, I agree. Like that's, it's how I start my day. It's pretty much all of my patients. That's going to be one of the main things that I'm going to add is that very first thing in the morning. And it doesn't like if you're like, but I have to like run and pee right away. That's fine. um, but normally it's like if you can just lie in bed, bend your knees, keep your feet flat, and just rock your knees from side to side. Back and forth. It's called lower trunk rotations. And it's a great way to start that low back to loosen up, right? You can then lie on your side and then you can open up one arm and rotate your whole body to the other side, the upper body. Exhale, breathe, and then come back. That's going to kind of start to get the shoulders, the mid back, and the neck moving a little bit better because you've been still all night long. Roll to the other side, do the open books again to the other side. You lie on your side, open, exhale, bring it back, repeat 5 to 10 times, sit up at the edge of the bed. And I'm telling you, like,
It
you're
makes a
gonna
difference.
stand up faster. You're gonna get moving faster because everything that's been still for 6 to 9 hours, depending on how much you sleep, has just gotten gentle movement through gentle range. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, like I feel like I'm not like shuffling to the bathroom. I'm like taking steps to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be a really great preventative way to keep spine health, but then also just all the other soft tissue that's involved when you're going through movement. So they're
So
two
the
simple
open
things
books,
to add.
open books is one of my favorite. Although I have to admit, as you were describing it, and I pictured laying in bed and my arm coming over and slapping my partner. It
Yeah,
just made me laugh a little bit.
yeah. Yeah, be
You can
careful
wake
of
them up
anybody in
too.
your way. Yeah.
Yeah, wake them up as well. Make them do it with you.
Exactly, like in tandem, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
um,
And I will say, so that's my favorite. The other time, Dr. Jess, that I really found it made a huge difference was for a little bit, I'm not currently doing it, but for a little bit, I went to do yoga after work. I would get done with work and I'd go straight to do yoga. And I will say there was something nice about like with yoga, it's combining a few things. It's strength, it's mental health, and it's mobility and flexibility. So it's kind of hidden everything. And it was so nice after work because it was kind of that little buffer before I came home. And I almost felt refreshed. So, like after work, sometimes we don't realize, especially if we're working at a computer or stress or anything, like how closed down our body gets. And to do that before I came home, it almost felt like I was starting my day again. Like, in the morning, it was like that refresher, like to enjoy the night, but feel relaxed at the same time.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's not like, and you don't have to go to a yoga class by any means, but
Mm-mm.
yoga is a great way to add mobility and flexibility into your week. So if you do like a yoga class once or twice a week, and then
Mm-hmm.
if you do strength training twice a week, and then you get your cardio in, you would have a very, very balanced week. I
Hmm.
don't personally have the time in my day to go to yoga classes like I used to, having
Yep.
kids and school and pickups and drop-offs and all this stuff. So the way I've incorporated mobility and flexibility into my life is that I like my first thing in the morning, but then before I run, I do an active warm up. And so I do some gentle heel sweeps to free up the back of my legs. I'll stand and do like a walking quad stretch. I do some rotational stretching. Nothing where I'm just holding a stretch for a duration of time, just a lot of like active warm up movements. And it's like, man, does that start my run so much better than if I don't do that. And it literally takes me probably 3 minutes total, you know? So my
Hmm.
3 minute time commitment gave me a much better start to my run, which means I got more out of that run.
Yeah.
And then at the end of my run, I come in and I do my full cool down. So I'll do sun salutations, like which was part of my yoga practice. And then I'll go in and do some just of that static stretching where we just hold stretches of muscles for 30 seconds to a minute. And so I'll stretch my quads, my hamstrings, my hip rotators, my calves, and then I'll end on the foam roll, really stretching out the front of my chest. And so my whole cool down time, I'm probably all in at 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how long at the end I want to lie on the foam roller and really work on that. But that's like, again, so what I've added to my run time essentially is 3 minutes at the end, 10 minutes, or 3 minutes at the beginning, 10 minutes at the end. So a 13-minute time commitment, I've got significantly improved range of motion, significantly improved run, and it's going to be very preventative for injuries as well. And so
Hmm.
I'll spend the 13 minutes for sure. Like that,
Well,
I'll spend that time.
and what I like is, it doesn't take a long time. It doesn't need to be a half hour, an hour of your day. It can literally be 10 minutes.
Oh yeah,
Um, and are there days where I probably don't have 10 minutes to spare? I'm sure. But I would say 90% of the time I could find a way to add 10 minutes into my day to get this done. It's just a matter of priorities and I think the hardest thing is putting yourself and your health first. And we as human beings that are busy and working struggle that. And then we as females really struggle with that. Whether you have a significant other, children, just other obligations, we as females tend to put all of those other obligations before ourselves.
right. Oh, 100%. It happens all the time. It's like you'll pack everybody else's lunch and then you forget to pack yours. And you're like, what is this?
Right? Yeah.
So as you can see, mobility and flexibility are easy to incorporate into your day. It doesn't take a long time. There is a good payout to that time spent with improved performance in sport as well as injury prevention. You can do it at the gym, you can do it at home, you can do it in a class that you participate in. So give it a try. Two Gals is all about incorporating small, sustainable steps to making overall better quality of life for people that really are looking for that. So make sure to share this episode with somebody that you think might benefit and hit subscribe, hit like. It helps us grow. And make sure to leave a comment below if there's a question that you have or if there's information that you'd love to learn about. We'd be happy to try and get that incorporated into how we record. All right, everybody, I'll see you next week.